Why, afternoon, folks. Old Buster coming to you again with another story. I just want to remind y'all now, these next stories coming up going to be a little bit longer. In fact, some of them way long, but you won't know anything about it because you don't get to see the pictures and all the research I've done, and I think you're missing out on a lot. And all you have to do is write Buster and the boys at yahoo.com. And if you do that, I'll send them to you by way of transfer big files, and you just download them to your computer and you can just look at all of them. But that's up to you. I wish you would. I'd like to see what you think about them. The name of this old story is The Vagaries of Time, and I'm going to make an old shout out to Hired. He's just working himself plumb to the bone over there in Lubbock, Texas. And the boy just needs to rest up a mite. But, him being one of the boys and all, I think Jesse Darrell, he's going off on a trip to Scotland, back to the McGuire clan, and I don't know, somewhere in Europe and whatnot. His youngins are taking him. He's been kind of poorly, but he feels better now. So, Walter, he's out and about, and Buster, I'm still just a-sitting here with all the fatness and all going on. But anyway, we here, and got a little heart test tomorrow. As far as we know, everything gonna be all right. Seems to be, but they like to test you out every once in a while. Anyway, the vagaries of time. Well, Buster and Jesse come up on Alabat, Miralat, and Herschel eating some greens and beans alongside their logging shack up on Big Seeker Creek. Well, Herschel had a coon skin and was about to put him over on the spit on the fire when a big halloo come up from bellering down the holler. Well, Jesse exclaimed, "If it don't beat all, it's Big Mike Young." "Well, what you doing in these here parts?" asked Buster. Well, Big Mike said he was doing some hoss trading and just stopped for a spell to palaver with the black boys. Well, about that time there come a buzzing like a hive of bees, and it was Hired a buzzing the place in Old Bell. "Well, all y'all up to something or no good?" asked Herschel. "Well, I tell you," said Buster, "we is a-looking for feral hogs. They been a-wreaking havoc all over the county, and I dare say the state piped up too," said Jesse. "Well, Hired is a flying low and slow in Bell and trying to locate 'em." "Well, I see y'all is a packing right smart," exclaimed Big Mike. "I'm going to ship my hosses back to Idaho, so I got some time if you would like to have some company for the hunt." "Well, be right proud to have you along with us," said Buster. Well, whilst all the boys was enjoying some coffee offered to them by Miralat, Jesse asked how their logging was a-going. Well, Alabat said it was good and hickory was prime right now. Then Jesse asked if they knowed anything about Indian bayou flooding. "Well, sure enough," said Herschel. "Well, downstream at the Bentley place there was a log jam or a dam, he didn't know rightly which one. Seems like Loudon is wanting some water to irrigate to use for his crops," says Herschel. "Well, it's sure enough been a flooding our place, and Grandpa Gus is fit to be tied now, along with the Mason and Rollins place too. Just can't dam up no waterway like he done," said Jesse. "We'll have to see about all that when we get on back." Well, Hired come back over the campsite and dropped a canister with a note in it. Said he'd land outside of Coy on that grass strip of theirs and to meet him over there. The boy said their thanks for the coffee and the information and wished them good luck and to be careful because the logging is right dangerous and it ain't for the faint-hearted to talk. Well, Herschel asked if and Buster would do him a favor, and Buster said sure enough he would if he could. Herschel said they'd be in the woods looking for some persimmon and would be gone up to Decoration Day. Would Buster be so of a mind to call up his and kin, since his and Ma and Pa didn't cotton to no telephone, too newfangled for 'em? "Well, who all you want me to get a hold of for you?" asked Buster. "Well, the Fernie hoes, the Poes, and the Bat can out there in Tar Bottoms. I'll sure do that for you," said Herschel. Buster said to Herschel. "Much obliged," said old Herschel. "Tell them to meet up at Decoration Day out to Horn Cemetery for a picnic and family gathering." "Will do," and then Buster took his and leave. Well, Buster, Jesse, and Big Mike met up with Hired at the airstrip at Coy and got the news. The feral hogs was feeding out on several fields next to government land in the reserve, said Hired. There are smaller pockets of hogs around about, but the main herd is in the hundreds. Plenty of food and water and shelter in the woods on the reserve. Well, how you figure we ought to go about this here hunt, says Jesse. Well, if you don't mind me putting in my 2 cents worth, said Big Mike, I think we need to cover all sides of the fields and get them a-coming and going. Some of the shooting is going to be 600-700 yards out, he said Hired. Well, ain't no step for a stepper, grinned Big Mike. They is bigger than that ground squirrel, so a feller hadn't ought to miss. He went to Billy laughing. Well, Big Mike just reach out there and get them at 800 to 1100 yards. He don't care. He's good. Well, Big Mike said he'd have paid good money for this here hunt, and it's free. Well, Buster said to the boys he'd like to call their old friend out in Texas, old Ray Earlbeck. Now, there's a hog hunter, said Big Mike. Any feller that can count over 5,000 coyotes killed, and they's the ones he counted that he kicked, would be the person for this here hunt. Reckon we ought to see if Bill Kimmel can come too. Now, them two is a pair to draw to, I tell you. Well, after getting back home, Buster called up Ray and Bill, and they said they would be right on out. No, said Buster, just pack up your gear and we'll pick you up in the General in Amarillo tomorrow. Tell Bill to bring along Nicky and she can visit with the gals. Of course, Nicky's his wife, you know. She's a barrel riding gal if you ever seen. She done won $1,500 in a new saddle in the last race, beat all them little old gals a riding. And her a grown woman like she is with youngins. Now, if she needs to get on back before Bill is ready to go, then the gals will fly her on back. Well, the boys and gals had a fine old visit with Ray, Bill, and Nicky and that evening, and then prepared for the hunt. Now, supper was real good feed there, I'm telling you. There was Buster's stuffed strawberries and stuffed mushrooms to start things off. The old McBrayer was a-flowing right smart, with the gals a-thinking up ways to make newfangled drinks with it. Well, all the boys and gals was a-feeling right sprightly when supper was served. There was a pork roast along with some smoked chicken and fried frog legs, sided by fresh sweet corn, mashed taters, pan-fried taters, fried okra, Grandma's lime jello salad with pineapple and pecans and cream cheese, sauerkraut, gravy, cornbread sticks, and Bill brung Buster's grandma's Griswold with him. That's her little, you bake cornbread in it, looks like a piece of corn. Homemade rolls, fresh churned butter for 'em, just picked green beans and candied sweet taters to boot. Now, you know Buster had to have a pie, so pecan, sweet tater, lemon, and apple pie was for the asking, along with hand-turned ice cream. Well, everybody got fuller than a tick, I'm a-telling you, and was about ready for bed after that meal. But all of them sit a spell out on the front porch with a little old McBrayer and visited for a spell before turning in. Well, it's times like this that makes life worth living, said Buster, looking deep into Lulu's eyes and hugging her up tight. Sure enough, said Hired, with all the rest giving a hear, hear. Then all the boys and gals said good night and headed for bed. The day before, some of the fellers that worked for the boys set up blinds for the boys around the fields. The butchering outfit was there too, with a refrigerated truck for the meat. Before heading out early that morning, Buster checked to see if and all the boys was geared up and had plenty of ammo. Ray said he was shooting his in .30-06, and he also brung along his .22-250. Walter asked him why a .30-06 and not a rifle with more range. Ray said he used a .22-250 for coyotes, and a .30-06 bullet didn't cost no more than it did. Ray said the lead on a coyote with a .22-250 was the same on a hog with the .30-06. The lead, it is. Excuse the way I pronounced that. It ain't lead, it's lead. That way he didn't miss, and everybody thought he was a crack shot. He said a-laughing, but he was, I'm here to tell you. Big Mike said to just figure that out took some doing, and down as many critters as Ray did take an expert shooter. So how many hogs you killed at one time, asked Walter. Well, Bill spoke up and said he won't tell you but 31 because I butchered them for him. All the boys set up their blinds with Big Mike a-hunting with Ray in the field closer to the reserve. Well, Bill and Walter set up on the furthest field with Buster, Hired and Jesse in the middle of the field that was wider than the other two fields. That way the three of them could cover all directions. At the crack of dawn, everybody was set up and ready to go. Just after sunrise, the hogs come in droves. They was boar bigger than 400 pounds or more. Lots of sows and piglets too. Well, Ray and Big Mike took the lead and fired first. And they ain't led that time, as took the lead. Then the fat was in the fire with the hogs running every which way and a squealing to beat the band. They squeal over anything. Dang barrels of the rifles got so hot they was a crimson red. Lucky thing, all of them had extra rifles with them and 2 cases of bullets each with them too. There was 2 hands assigned to each blind to lend a hand with reloading and such, so that made a heap of difference, you know. Well, with all of the shooting, the hogs would head out in one direction to be turned back in another, and a running lickety-split, you know. Well, such a melee a body ever saw, I tell you. Them hogs run into a hailstorm of lead any which way they went. Well, when all was said and done, 428 hogs was put down. And all the boys come out of their blinds to see what all they done killed. Well, as Hired, Buster, and Jesse was walking out into the field, a big old boar, the biggest they'd ever seen, with tuskers just a-glistening in the sun, come a-charging the boys. Now, it's been known that some of them boars got up to around about 1,000 pounds. Before any of them boys could raise their rifle, that boar was on them. Well, Buster stepped in front of Jesse and Hired and pulled his Arkansas toothpick knife and hollered he was going to pig stick that off. As the boar come on to Buster, a shot rang out. The big boar skidded up to Buster's feet, nader than a doornail, I tell you. What the heck done happened? Hollered Buster, looking around quizzical like. Well, Jesse and Hired shook their heads and said they didn't know because they didn't shoot. Well, when all the boys met up, Buster went to tell him what all happened and asked if anybody knowed who shot. Well, Ray and Big Mike went to grinning. It wasn't 1 shot, it was 2. Well, Ray and Big Mike both saw the boar heading towards the boys at the same time and shot at the same time. Sounded like 1 shot. The boar was hit 2 different places though. 1 in the head and 1 in the heart. Now, how each one knowed where to shoot, nobody knows. Just instinct, I guess, I reckon. Big Mike's 460 Weatherby and Ray's 30-06 done a number on that there hog, I'm a-telling you. Ray got him in the eye and Big Mike in the heart. Stopped him dead in his tracks. Well, after butchering out the good meat and having the backhoe bury the remains, the boys headed on for the house. Heck of a hunt, said Big Mike. Well, that's for sure, echoed Ray. Best one I ever been on. Wouldn't have missed it for nothing. Well, the next day, Hired took Ray and Bell and scouted the area for the hogs. The area where the hogs was killed didn't show nary a sign of a hog, but pockets of them was spotted and noted on the map for future hunts. In the meantime, Grandpa Gus, Mr. Mason, Mr. Rollins had come to Jesus with the Bentleys. Either they could blow the dam or they would. They said they didn't mean no harm and would tear it out today. The Bentleys, that is. That let the build-up run off and relieve the flooding and let everybody get on back to normal. Well, a party for sure that night, I tell you. All the families, their friends and hired hands, and the families and, of the hired hands and town folk too come to the barbecue. Well, all manner of fixings was served up and all you could eat too. Now, whilst everybody was enjoying themselves, old Steve Smith from the Game and Fish Commission stood up and said he had a few words for the crowd. He said he surely appreciated what all the boys put together to rid the state of the scourge of the feral hogs. He said the state appreciated the assistance of their neighboring state of Texas and the state of Idaho helping them out. He then asked Ray, Bill, and Big Mike to come farmers. Steve presented each of them to Arkansas Traveler Certificate and a lifetime hunting and fishing license. Well, Mr. Smith also told the folks that the shot that Ray and Mike made to save Buster and Hired Jesse was a miracle. It was 817 yards and the 2 bullets hit their mark exactly to stop that boar from seriously harming and killing the boys. One in the heart and one in the head, in the eye. A good time was had by all, and a good night's rest had the boys up bright and early. The boys and the gals decided to buy them some new boots and hats in Amarillo when they took Ray and Bill back the next day. Well, old Big Mike tagged along, said he needed a few things too. Well, Mike left on out back to Idaho when they got back from Amarillo and told them all to come for a visit sometime soon. Well, 2 months later, all the boys and Mike received hand tool leather feathers for their hats along with belts from Bill thanking them for their hospitality and friendship. Buster also got a new sheath for his Arkansas toothpick that made anything he ever had just put to shame. You couldn't buy nothing like that. Bill made it for him, you know. Bill said that old thing he had was just an embarrassment for good steel. Well, when all the boys look back on their lives, what it is, and what was. Their destiny has been dictated by the vagaries of time. Y'all have a blessed evening. Old Buster signing out.